The Soviet-Afghan War, a 9-year conflict, remains one of the Cold War's most brutal and consequential conflicts. The seeds of this war were sown in the years leading up to the Soviet invasion, marked by political instability and ideological struggles within Afghanistan. Afghanistan, strategically positioned at the crossroads of Central Asia and South Asia, had long been an object of interest for global powers. For the Soviet Union, Afghanistan represented a key buffer state between its Central Asian republics and the West. By the 1970s, Afghanistan was grappling with internal divisions as various political factions vied for control. The Afghan monarchy was overthrown in 1973, replaced by a republic led by Mohammad Daoud Khan. Khan's rule proved short-lived, as his government was overthrown in 1978 by the People's Democratic Party of Afghanistan, or PDPA, a Marxist-Leninist political party with close ties to Moscow. The PDPA's rise to power did not usher in stability. The party was riven by internal factions, primarily the dominant Khalq faction led by Nur Muhammad Taraki and Hafizullah Amin, and the smaller Parkam faction led by Babrak Karmal. The Khalq faction embarked on radical social and economic reforms to transform Afghanistan into a socialist state. These reforms were met with widespread resistance from traditional segments of Afghan society, particularly in rural areas. The PDPA government, facing a growing insurgency, found itself increasingly reliant on Soviet support. The fragile peace in Afghanistan shattered in December 1979, when the Soviet Union launched a full-scale invasion, marking a turning point in the Cold War. The decision to invade Afghanistan was not taken lightly in Moscow. The Soviet leadership, under Leonid Brezhnev, was deeply divided on the issue. However, a confluence of factors ultimately tipped the scales in favor of invasion. The Soviet leadership viewed the instability in Afghanistan through the lens of superpower rivalry, seeing the United States as the hidden hand behind the unrest. The Soviets feared that the US was seeking to establish a foothold in Afghanistan. Adding to Soviet anxieties, the PDPA government was further destabilized by internal power struggles. In September 1979, Hafizullah Amin, a hardline Khalq faction leader, seized power in a coup, killing President Taraki. Amin's ruthlessness and unpredictable nature alarmed Moscow. Faced with a deteriorating situation, the Soviet leadership decided to intervene directly. On December 24, 1979, Soviet troops crossed the border into Afghanistan, launching a swift operation to depose Amin and install a more pliable leader in Kabul. Amin was killed by Soviet forces, and Babrak Karmal, the leader of the more moderate Parcham faction, was installed as the new president. The Soviet invasion, however, did not go according to plan. The Soviets had anticipated a quick victory but walked into a quagmire, igniting a firestorm of resistance across Afghanistan. The Soviet-Afghan War was not simply a clash of armies, it was a battle for the soul of Afghanistan. The Mujahideen, a term meaning those who engage in jihad, emerged as the vanguard of this resistance. The Mujahideen were not a monolithic force, but rather a loose coalition of various groups. Despite their internal divisions, the Mujahideen were united by their common goal: to expel the Soviet invaders and topple the Soviet-backed government in Kabul. They engaged in classic guerrilla warfare, ambushing Soviet convoys, attacking outposts, and then melting back into the mountains. The Mujahideen's cause was bolstered by a groundswell of international support. The US, along with allies like Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and China, poured money, weapons, and supplies into Afghanistan. The CIA played a crucial role in training and equipping the Mujahideen. The influx of foreign support significantly bolstered the Mujahideen's fighting capabilities, allowing them to inflict heavier casualties on the Soviet forces. The Soviet-Afghan War was a tragedy of immense proportions, leaving an indelible mark on Afghanistan's people, its land, and its psyche. The war, which raged for over 9 long years, exacted a heavy toll on all sides, claiming the lives of tens of thousands of combatants and civilians alike. The Soviet army, despite its superior firepower, suffered heavy casualties, with an estimated 15,000 Soviet soldiers killed and many more wounded. The Afghan Mujahideen, too, suffered heavy losses. However, it was the Afghan civilian population that bore the brunt of the war's brutality. Caught in the crossfire, Afghan civilians faced indiscriminate violence, displacement, and economic hardship. The Soviet army, frustrated by its inability to crush the Mujahideen, resorted to brutal tactics, including the indiscriminate bombing of villages. These bombings killed and maimed countless Afghan civilians, creating a legacy of fear and resentment. The war also triggered one of the largest refugee crises in modern history. Millions of Afghans fled their homes, crossing the border into neighboring Pakistan and Iran. The Soviet-Afghan War also had profound geopolitical repercussions,